You walk into a job interview and someone asks, "So tell me about yourself." And without even thinking, you start selling. Not lying, just performing confidence you may not fully feel yet. If you grew up in America, this feels completely normal. In a lot of other countries, it comes across as strange, even a little much. So today, we're breaking down 5 psychological traits that quietly shape the American mind. And the last one explains almost everything else on this list. Most people think national character is just stereotypes, cowboy hats, fast food, loud voices, but psychologists who study culture have found something much more specific. The environment you grow up in trains your brain to expect certain things: how much risk is safe, how much attention is normal to want, how much you're supposed to trust strangers. America produces a very particular psychological pattern, and once you see it, you'll notice it in almost every American you meet, including maybe yourself.
Let's start with where this comes from. Psychologist Hofstede, the same researcher who mapped Australia's culture, also measured something called individualism. It's a scale of how much a culture values personal achievement versus group harmony. The United States scores the highest of any country Hofstede ever measured. Not close to the highest, the actual highest. That single number explains a shocking amount of American psychology. Because when a culture is built entirely around the individual, the mind adapts to match it.
Trait 1. You've been trained to sell yourself constantly. That interview moment isn't random. American culture treats self-promotion as basic survival, not arrogance. Kids are praised for raising their hand first. Report cards include confidence as a grade. Job culture rewards people who talk about their wins loudly and often. Psychologists call this a self-enhancement culture. Compare that to Japan or the Netherlands, where downplaying your achievements is the social norm, and standing out too much gets you quietly punished. In America, it's the opposite. If you don't advocate for yourself, nobody else will. So the brain adapts early. Promote loudly or get overlooked. Trait 2. You feel a low-grade pressure to seem happy even when you're not. Ask an American how they're doing. 9 times out of 10, the answer is good, even mid-crisis. Researchers studying emotional display rules found that American culture has an unusually strong norm around expressing positivity in public, regardless of actual internal state. This isn't dishonesty, it's a trained reflex. Psychologists call it the tyranny of the positive attitude. Negative emotion in public can read as weakness, or worse, as a burden on other people, so it gets smoothed over, packaged, presented as fine. The cost is real. Studies have linked this forced positivity to higher rates of unacknowledged anxiety because the emotion doesn't disappear, it just goes underground. Trait 3. You believe somewhere deep down that you can become anything if you just work hard enough. This is the psychological fingerprint of the American dream, and it runs deeper than most people realize. Cross-cultural psychologists call this an internal locus of control, the belief that outcomes come from your own effort, not luck, not circumstance, not the system around you. Americans score extremely high on this compared to almost every other developed country. It's genuinely powerful. It fuels ambition, risk-taking, reinvention. Some of the most driven people on the planet grew up believing effort beats everything. But it has a dark side too. When something goes wrong, that same belief system quietly tells you it must be your fault. Not the economy, not chance, you. Now here's the twist. All 3 of these traits, self-promotion, forced positivity, and relentless self-belief, trace back to the exact same root: radical individualism. And individualism is a trade-off, not a superpower. Cross-cultural research consistently shows that highly individualist cultures report higher rates of loneliness than collectivist ones, even while reporting higher self-esteem. Americans are trained to believe deeply in themselves, but that same training quietly weakens the instinct to lean on other people. Self-reliance becomes the default. Asking for help starts to feel like failure. So the psychology that makes Americans confident, driven, and endlessly optimistic on the surface is the same psychology that can leave people feeling completely alone underneath it. So what does this actually mean? Being raised in America doesn't just give you an accent or a flag. It installs a specific psychological operating system. Confidence as a survival skill, positivity as a social requirement, self-belief so strong it can turn outward struggle into private shame. None of this is random. It's the direct result of a culture built on individual reinvention, from immigration to the frontier myth to an economy that has always rewarded the loud and the driven. The psychology followed the history, and most Americans inherited it without ever choosing it. Here's the practical part. If trait 3 hit hardest, the self-blame one, this is worth sitting with honestly. Effort matters, but not everything that goes wrong in your life is a referendum on your character.
some of it really is circumstance. And letting that be true isn't giving up. It's just accuracy.
If any of this sounded exactly like you, drop it in the comments. I want to know which one hit hardest. And if you want to see this breakdown for another country, tell me which one. This series isn't stopping at Australia and the US. Subscribe if you want to see where it goes next. See you in the next one.